Hey students! So we have made it to Unit 10, Day 5 video notes. You need your calculator, you need your note sheet, and maybe a highlighter. And once again, the video is doing some wacky stuff, so laugh about it, but you can still hear me pretty well and you can see what I'm writing, so we're going to move on with it. So first thing, let's get the circle equation written down. Now, I actually showed this to you previously, so let's see if you remember it. So circle equation. All right, there's the circle equation. We talked about HK being the center. HK is the center, and R is the radius. All right. We also talked about, we're going to write it right here, that when we're pulling the center from here to here, it is the opposite, or from here to here, we use the opposite. And then the radius, it's squared up here in the formula, but it is not squared when we write it down. So we take the square root. If you need to write that here, square root. Okay. So let's see how you do on these problems. Now, as we go through this entire worksheet, for the majority of the worksheet, I am going to be asking you the same question. What is the center and what is the radius? Those are the two pieces that we have to be able to write the equation of the circle. And on your worksheet, for like the first 2 pages, the directions are write the equation of the circle, but they present it to you with different information. No matter what, to write the equation of a circle, you need the center and you need the radius. Okay? All right. So this is what I want you to get used to doing. Writing it down like that. In fact, we can go ahead and do that all the way down if we wanted to. But if you go ahead and set up what this equation of a circle looks like, putting in the numbers is not difficult at all. Okay, so remember we talked about it's the opposite. So this is your H and your K. So from here to putting it in, we put in the opposite. Okay, so this is going to be, the X always goes with the X number. So it's going to be X minus 5. Then it's going to be Y minus 3. And the radius is 2. So remember, it is 2 squared over here. So we have to put 4. All right, let's do another one. So this one is going to be X plus 1 parenthesis squared. Now, just to go over why it's plus 1, because it's X minus a negative 1. And X minus a negative 1 gives us the positive 1. Okay, and then it's going to be Y minus 7. And if it's 14 over here, then we're going to do 14 squared, which is 196. Something else to pay attention to help you remember, this is something squared, something squared, something squared. So if that helps you remember what the radius is, it's the square root of whatever number's right here. Okay, number 3 and number 4, I want you to pay attention because sometimes they try to trick you that they have given us the diameter and we need the radius. So if the diameter is 18, that should be no trouble to know that the radius is what? The radius is 9. And then if the diameter is 32, the radius is 16. So we're not using these numbers in our problem. We're using these numbers. Okay, so I am going to ask you a question. I want you to write the answer for number 3, and then I'm going to ask you a question about that. So right now, go ahead and write the answer to number 3. Okay, so let's write the equation of the circle. And it's going to be the opposite of these numbers. X plus 2, Y plus 11. And then it is that number squared, so it is equal to 81, which is the question that I asked you. What is the circle equation equal to? Okay, good. Now, the next one, we need to look at this thing right here. Okay, so when there's a zero, it is no big deal. Zero is a number. You are still allowed to write your equations like these, or we can shorten it and make it easier for you. So I'm going to show you both ways. Okay, if I was to continue with what I'm doing, kind of writing this smaller so I can squeeze the other answer above it. Okay, if I was going to continue what I'm doing, we can put x minus 0. We can put y minus 9. And we can put that it's equal to 16 squared, which is 256. Okay, now, if you ever see the circle equation with a 0 for the center written in the answer key or written in a book, it won't be written like this. This is not incorrect, okay? But they will put it like that. Okay, so you might see this answer. Instead of putting the 0, you assume that there is a 0. Okay, so number 5, let's put x plus 4 squared. And then because there's a 0, you can put y minus 0, or you can just put y squared. Now, I want you to think about what we've done. We squared the 2 to get a 4. We squared a 14 to get a 196. We squared the 9 to get the 81. We squared the 16 to get 256. What do I do to the square root of 47? We square it. So I want to show you something. If I take the square root of 47 and then I square it, there's my squared key. What does it give me? When you square a square root, this is an algebra rule, it gives you the number underneath. Because if you guys will look on your calculator, the squared and the square root are on the same button. They undo each other. That would be easy to remember because they are on the same button. Okay, so whenever, I'm going to write it over here. Whenever you see that, and you're going to see a lot of that in Algebra 2, whenever you see that, the square and the square root cancel each other out, and it leaves you the 47. Guys, it's the same thing as when you have x minus 3 equals 12 and you're solving, you do the opposite. You add 3, you're doing the opposite operation. This is an opposite operation. So it is going to be equal to 47. Now, that should make sense to you. How would I go from here to here? We would square root the 4 to get the 2. We would square root the 196 to get the 14. We would square root the 81 to get the 9. We would square root the 47 to get the square root of 47. That should fit perfectly in your brain, okay? All right. So we'll go ahead and do this last one together. And it's going to be a 158 over here based on what I just told you. So inside the parentheses is going to be x minus 15 and y plus 6. So there's 6 examples of how to write the circle equation. Remember, in order to write the circle equation, we have to have the center and we have to have the radius. Okay, number 7. It is the same instructions. What do I need to write the equation of the circle? I need the center and I need the radius. Well, they have not given us the problem like these. They've given us a picture. So what is the center? Well, we're going to count the center. And the center is going to be over 1, 2, 3, and down 2. So that point is 3, negative 2. It's just a different representation of the problem. To get the radius, count horizontally or vertically from the center to the circle. So that means I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes. Guys, how could this problem be any more difficult than the ones up here? You have the center and you have the radius. You can now write the equation. Okay? Go ahead and write that equation for me. All right, see if you got it right. So it's going to be x minus 3 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 25. Okay? All right. Number 8 and number 9. So out of all the problems on the test, these are the ones that have the most work because they are going to use the distance formula. And again, the reason is, what two things do I need to write the equation of the circle? These all have the same directions. Write the equation of the circle. We need the center, and I need a radius. Okay, well, I've got the center. I need to get the radius. Well, what this is telling me is if this, I'm going to use this example up here. If this is the center and it says a point on the circle anywhere, they give me a point anywhere, what is this little piece called from the center to a point on the circle? It is called the radius. So we are going to use the distance formula to find the radius. Okay, so let's write that down. Why am I having you write that down? Because when you do your worksheet, I want you to come back and go, oh, the way I find my radius is I use the distance formula. Okay, so let's kind of squeeze that work over here and then we'll put our final answer down here. All right, so distance formula. From these 2 points, subtract the x's, subtract the y's. So if I go 7 minus 9, and then 4 minus 10. At this point, I don't care how many steps it takes you to get that answer, and then we'll put that here because that is our radius. Okay, so that's going to be negative 2 squared and negative 6 squared, which is going to be the square root of 4 plus 36, which is 40. And guess what? It's okay to leave it like that because you remember up here we had radicals as the radius, which is fine. Now, if you go ahead and get a decimal and do 1 decimal place, that means your answer might be off just a tad, but that's okay because I see your work. So if I did the square root of 40, and I put my answer as 6.3, that's fine. Okay, so I'll show you that we get the same answer no matter what. So I'm going to put square root of 40 or 6.3. Okay, either one of those are okay. I don't care which way you write it. All right, so now let's write our answer. Our goal is to write the equation of the circle. So it's going to use the center, x minus 9, y minus 10. And if I'm using this, I square the square root and it just gives me 40. If I use this, okay, square the radius squared, it gives me close to 40, and I would still count that as correct. Okay. My preference, that's why I have my highlighter. Sorry. My preference is to leave it like this. Okay. But again, I will still count it correct if you do it the other way. Okay. Guess what? Do it. You have all the work right here to help you. Go ahead and do that problem. I will ask you one question about something in this problem. Okay, here you go. So if you need to pause the video and write all that down if you missed it, check your work. Okay. This is where you guys are messing up. So make sure you know that it's -8 in parentheses squared, which gives me positive 64. And the same thing here. So my radius is the square root of 128. And when I put that into the problem, it gives me 128 over here. Okay. And then these pieces should fit in easily from the center. All right, turn the page. All right, we still have, go ahead and skip those two. Okay. And let's go to these. Now, these are going to incorporate what we did on worksheet number 49. So no matter what, we still need the center and the radius to write down our circle equation. And these instructions are still the same. Write the equation of the circle throughout the whole worksheet. Okay, so I've got my center, but I need my radius. So they gave us the circumference. So guess what? Circumference is pi times diameter. Diameter is double the radius. We can use that information to get the radius to be able to write the equation of the circle. Okay, so we're going to do what we did on worksheet number 49. This is what they, I'll highlight it. This is what they gave us. So that's the formula we're going to start with. Okay, circumference equals pi times diameter. All of these, they have put pi in the work to make it easier for you. So my circumference is 6 pi equals pi times diameter. What happens when you divide both sides by pi? We get the diameter is 6. And if my diameter is 6, then what is my radius? Radius is 3. So now I have enough information to be able to write the equation of the circle. And I will just put that right here. I'm going to go sideways so I have more room. So it's going to be, we're using the center, remember, and the radius. Okay, so it's going to be x plus 1, do the opposite, plus y minus 4 equals, and then it's radius squared, so it's going to be equal to 9. That is the final answer to the question. Okay. All right, number 13. This is what they gave us. Same exact problem. The only difference is my radius is going to be a decimal, and that's perfectly fine. So 17, let's write the formula. Circumference equals pi times diameter. So 17 pi equals pi times diameter. Divide both sides by pi. If my diameter is 17, then what is my radius? I'll put it up here. 17 divided by 2 is 8.5. All right, so now I have the center and the radius. I can write the equation of the circle. X minus 9 squared, y minus 12 squared, and it's going to be 8.5 squared. 8.5 squared is going to be, I'll show you, 8.5 squared gives us 72.25, and that is perfectly fine to have as an answer. This is the final answer to my question. What is the equation of the circle? Well, how are these different? They've given us the area. So that means I'm going to start, go ahead and get both of those. I'm going to start with the area formula. So area equals pi r squared, and that's the piece I'm going to need. Okay, so we're going to put 16 pi over here. The pi's cancel each other out. I didn't mark those out, but I want you guys to, some of you are having trouble with that. The pi's, when you divide both sides by pi, they cancel each other out. So then that leaves r squared equals 16. How do you undo r squared? You take the square root. So r equals 4. So my radius is 4. I now have enough information to write the equation of a circle. See, these are not difficult. Everything is stemming off of what two things do you have to have? The center and the radius to be able to write the equation of the circle. Okay, so go ahead and write the equation of the circle, and I will ask you one question about something in that answer. Okay, let's see if you got it right. So it's going to be x plus 8 squared, y plus 11, and then what is it equal to? So remember I told you something squared plus something squared equals something squared. So hopefully you put 16 and not 2. It is 16. Okay. So this one, your question is, what is the radius? Go ahead and find the radius for me. Okay, see if you got it right. So we're going to put area equals pi r squared. The area is 361 pi. The pi's cancel each other out. So r squared equals 361. And I'm going to have to take the square root of 361 to find out what that is. I don't have that one memorized. 19. So that means my radius is 19. Okay, so hopefully you got that right. And then the equation would be x minus 2 squared plus y plus 2 squared. Remember, it is the opposite when you put it in here. And then it is equal to 19 squared, which was 361. Have you caught on to that? Okay. That the radius squared was 16. I could have skipped this step because this is radius squared. Radius squared is 361. I could have skipped this step and put the radius squared here. You couldn't do that up here. Okay. All right, moving on. Our last set of notes are going to be long. Okay, so let's keep moving. Now the instructions are changing. All of the instructions so far have been write the equation of the circle. I needed to have the center and the radius. Well, now they have given me the equation of the circle, and I just need to write down the center and the radius. So we're undoing what we've done. So my center, remember it's the opposite, +5, +1. If you don't put the parentheses, it is wrong. And then my radius, this is radius squared. So we have to square root that to get the radius. Okay. All right. Next. Go ahead and give me the answers for that one. All right. The center is -7, +2. And then, I'm not going to ask you this. Pay attention. They're trying to trick us. So they want the diameter. So to get the radius, if I take the square root of this, the radius is 18. Okay. Square root of 324 is 18. And so then what is the diameter? Diameter is 18 doubled, which is 36. Okay. All right. Tricky. And they're going to try to do it again. All right. So this time the center, notice we don't have a number here. When you don't have a number, it is a 0. And then it's the opposite, so -10. And then to get the radius, we are square rooting. I don't have that memorized either. So square root 42.25. Okay, so it gives us 6.5. So that means my radius is 6.5. That means my diameter is double that, which is 13. So you do need to be careful with what they're asking you. Okay, number 19 question I'm going to ask you, what is the center? Okay, hopefully you put 6, negative 11. And then the radius, again, it is radius, so they're not trying to trick us here. But we took the square root of 64 to get the 8. So we could put square root of 58. But if you went ahead and worked that out, 7.6 would be fine. Okay. All right, we're going to skip this one and go on to the last part. Okay. So here we are again, one more problem that says write the equation of the circle. Okay, and we kind of had this back here, like this one right here. Write the equation of the circle. So what I need is the center, and I need the radius. Okay, what is the center of the circle? If you put 1, negative 1, you got it right. So the center of the circle is 1, negative 1. What is the radius? So to help you with that again, here's the center, and you count up, down, right, or left, and you count the boxes. So it's 1, 2, 3. So the radius is 3. Once you have the center and the radius, you can write the equation of the circle. Equation of the circle. Opposite, x minus 1, y plus 1, and let me stop. Guys, every problem, x, y, okay? Don't accidentally put x and x, because that would make it wrong, okay? And then it is radius squared, which is 9. So that was just another example seeing if you could write the equation of the circle. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to graph it. This is the only problem that I'm going to show you how to graph, and it's not hard. Okay, so first of all, to graph it, we need the center and the radius, so we're going to write that down. So my center is negative 4, 0. Catch that 0? And then my radius is 3. All right, so we go put the dot on the graph of negative 4, 0. And then I need to go north, south, east, west, 3 boxes. So I'm going to go up, down, right, and left. 3 boxes. You cannot go diagonal counting the boxes because that is not a distance of 3. Okay, so the diagonal is not 3. And then you just do your best to draw a circle. There you go. All right. I have one more thing to show you. And this last thing is very important. And I'm going to show you, you will be doing this in Algebra 2. So you need to really, really, really pay attention. Okay, so this last thing is going to take about 15 minutes for us to go over. And it's going to be converting the following equation to standard form. So this is the general form of a circle. If it's in this form, I cannot tell the center, I cannot tell the radius. And whenever we have the circle equation, we want to know the center and the radius because that's the most useful parts. So we can transform this equation using a little bit of algebra, okay? It is very, very methodical, step by step. So you need to follow every step. You cannot skip steps. It takes about 3 steps to get through the problem. You cannot skip steps because if you do, you will miss the radius every single time. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to write it over here. We're going to group our x's, and we're going to group our y's. Okay, so what that means is I'm going to group my x's together. And then I want you to leave a space. So where my finger is, we're not going to write anything. Okay. And I'm going to say leave space. Okay. So you'll know that's where my finger is. All right. So the y's, positive y squared minus 8y. Okay. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to move. So this term right here, you guys know when we have ax squared plus by squared equals c, or plus c equals 0, the standard form of an equation, ax plus by equals c. All right, this is our c term. It doesn't have an x or a y with it. There's no variable with it. It's just the constant. All right, we need to move it over here. Okay, so we're going to move the constant. Okay, we're going to move that constant to the other side. And we do this by doing the opposite. So to undo negative 12, I need to add 12 to the left and add it to the right. Don't forget your space. Now, that is the correct view that you need to have. Okay, we are going to do something that's called complete the square. It's a B. And there's a lot of thought that goes into this. Okay, there's a lot of instruction that goes into this. So I'm going to do a little quick review. When you were in Algebra 1, you did factoring. One of the ways of factoring was factoring the perfect square. I don't know if you dwelled on it a lot. You may have not dwelled on it at all. It may have been during COVID. I don't know. But completing the square is super easy if you follow what I do. So what we're doing is we are making, well, let me show you what completing the square looks like, okay? What it does is it takes, you do not have to write this down, but what completing the square does is it takes a trinomial and it factors into this. And factoring is undoing multiplication, if you remember that. And so what this does is it factors into x, and it factors into the square root of that, which is 5. And then this sign is going to come down here. And doesn't that look like something that's in our circle equation? It does. So what we're doing when we complete the square is we're coming up with this number that makes the equation work, that allows us to factor. Okay. And you don't have to know all the background for that. You just have to know that this is not hard. Okay. Now, because it's a formula, the formula that we use to complete the square is that. Okay. So we have our trinomial with the x's, and this is your A, and this is your B, and my C is what we're creating by using this little formula that I gave you. So we need to go back to the B. The B is what we're using. Guys, all of this can be done in your head. You don't need to pick up your calculator at all. So watch. We're going to put, I'm going to tell you another little secret. You can just use the number and ignore the sign. Because what happens when you square negative? Everything's going to turn out positive anyways. Okay, so I told you there's lots going into this. All right, so if you just take the 8 in your brain, what is 8 divided by 2? 4. In your brain, what is 4 squared? You can do all of that in your head. So that gives us 16. Now, oh my goodness, if you need to use your calculator, you're going to go parentheses, negative 8 divided by 2, close your parentheses, and square. You can literally get this answer quicker than it takes you to type it in your calculator. Okay, but you better use parentheses when you're doing that. All right, so it gives us 16. Now that 16 is going to be added right here. And in math, I have an equal sign. If I add something to the left, I have to add it to the right. This is all going to flow much quicker when we do the next problem. Okay, unfortunately, we have another 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. So we're going to add a 16 here and we're going to add a 16 here. If you add it to the left, add it to the right. Okay, I promise you we're almost done. The final instructions are to write the equation of a circle, and we've almost got it. Because we're right here. Okay, so this is how we get these answers. Whatever's here gives me the x, and you guys know x times x is x squared. So what we're doing is we're taking the square root. So that gives me the x. Whatever's right here gives me the number here. And again, we're taking the square root. What is the square root of 16? 4. Okay, in this little trinomial, whatever sign is right there, that 8 in the middle, he doesn't have a job. The x squared gives us the x. The 16 gives us the 4. All he gets to give us is the sign. So he's like, here's the negative. Take it. Okay, so the negative comes down. All right, same thing over here. The y squared gives us the y. The 16 gives us a 4. And he says, I have nothing to give you, so take the negative. Okay, and then all we have to do is add all these together, and we get 44. Now, unfortunately, my examples did not come out nice and pretty. Sometimes they don't, but this is the equation of the circle. The center would be 4, 4, and the radius for this one would be the square root of 44, which is also 6.6. Now, I promise you, it's going to go a lot quicker now. Okay. All right, look at the next example. We're going to group the x's together. Remember, leave a space. Now notice, here's the x's. So I group them together, leave a space. I'm going to group the y's together. So I've got the y squared and the 16y. Leave a space. The 43 has to move over. It's negative 43, so we add to move it over. That is not hard. Okay, group the x's together, group the y's together, move the constant to the other side. Okay, by the way, I never put the other step on here. Then we use our formula to fill in the empty space. And then step number 4 is to write the equation. So it typically is a 4-step problem. Okay, so we've done step 1 and 2. Now we're going to use our formula, and we're going to, you know what? Let's change this to a 6. I'm not going to give you problems where we can't take it and divide it by 2. I don't want to. So change this to a 6. Change to a 6. Power of being a math teacher. Just change it to a 6. Okay, that's going to make life a little bit easier for us. Now let's do this in our head. What is 6 divided by 2? 3. What is 3 squared? 9. I am adding a 9 to the left, and I'm adding a 9 to the right. You will always add the number that comes from this formula. Always. Okay? All right, my question to you, what number is going to go right here? Okay. What number is going to go right there? Okay, so let's find out. What is 16 divided by 2? 8. What is 8 squared? 64. So if you put 64, you got that right. Add it to the left, add it to the right. My last step is to write the equation. So this is going to be x. Let's go ahead and do this. All right, so x comes from here. What goes in here? 3. What does the 6 give us? It gives us the negative. All right, over here, the y comes from here. What goes here? 8. And what does the 16 give us? The positive. And then over here, we add all of these numbers together and we get 116. Again, it's not a pretty radius, but it works. So my center is 3, -8. Remember, it is the opposite. And my radius is the square root of 116, or you can put 10.8. I like this answer better. Okay, doesn't matter. All right, we're not going to do the last one, but we are going to do one more. Okay, and I'll ask you some questions about this one. I'm going to ask you multiple questions about this one, so make sure that you understand. Oh, I have not had an example, but let's say that there was a 0 right here. There was nothing here. Let's say that that was missing. Then you would not complete the square. You would not use this formula to put a number here because there's no b. Okay, so if that's missing, it would be a problem that looks like this. Okay, and you would only complete the square with the part that you had numbers for. I don't know if that happens in your homework or not. You have 4 of these in your homework. Okay, so let's group the x's together, group the y's together, leave the spaces. Leave space. Leave space. Move the -8 over. That's not always a negative number, by the way. Sometimes it's positive and it puts a negative over here. Perfectly fine. So, but we're going to move that 8 over. All right, my first question to you, what number goes right here? Okay, you should have put +9. So it is 6 divided by 2, which is 3. Remember, the negative doesn't matter because if you square the negative, it's going to disappear anyways. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. All right, my next question to you. What, oh, don't forget over here. Okay, my next question to you is, what number goes here? +4. +4. The way we get that, it's 4 divided by 2, which is 2, and then 2 squared gives us 4. So you should have got that right. All right. All right, my next question, what goes in here? If you said x minus 3, you got it right. My last question, what goes in here? If you said y plus 2, you got it right. Oh, minus 2. If you said y minus 2. My fault. If you say y minus 2, you got it right. Okay. And then the center is +3, +2, opposites. So sorry about that. And it was my last question too. And then my radius is the square root of 21. But if you don't like that answer, you could put 4.6, same thing. All right, you will have 4 of these in your homework to do in class, and you need to make sure that you're showing all the steps, that you have this out while you're doing it, and I will help you with whatever you need help with. Okay. Little smiley face in the corner, so I know that you watched the notes all the way. And then you're done with the notes. Go ahead and mark them as done, and you're done with this unit. Thanks, students.